Allah, if Matawalle did not leave that position as the State Minister of Defense, that is to say, Tinubu is also part of the factors, the elements that is promoting and encouraging banditry in Nigeria. Let me say again, if this man did not leave that seat, I am telling you, that is to say, Tinubu is the #1 person encouraging banditry in Nigeria. Because I'm wondering why this person, with all this, is not even no more an allegation now. In short, Sheikh Murtala started. Now his special assistant is even coming out with evidence of how he has bought cars, how he has actually pampered these bandits, and at the end of the day, you still have a government allowing this kind of person to remain in government? What? Well, the fact is, well, I want everybody to know, and the international community to be aware as well, that this man should not be trusted with classified security informations as far as Nigeria is concerned, because he has a heavy allegation that linked him to all this banditry and terrorism everywhere. So why should it be? And in the spirit of, if you think it's a fight to just kick out a northerner, bring another same northerner and a Muslim, and at the same time, nobody has a problem with that. But why should this person, with so much in his hands, still remains and be privileged to highly classified security informations in the country? For God's sake.
So more pressure is mounting on Tinubu to sack Bello Matawalle, the Minister of State for Defense, as more evidence are coming out to show that he is financing and also sponsoring terrorism and banditry in Nigeria. My people, wonder shall never end. The leader of terrorists and bandits in Nigeria, Bello Matawalle, has come out and also admit meeting with a Zamfara ex-governor, Matawalle, and even urging Nigeria government to arrest him as well as other people that he made mention of. Not only that, a man called Musa Kamarawa even confirmed that yes, Matawalle is sponsoring and also financing terrorism and banditry in Nigeria. So now Nigerians are coming out massively telling Tinubu to sack this man. If not, which means Tinubu is also involved in this terrorism and banditry in Nigeria. Just as someone said that if Matawalle is not arrested and interrogated, Tinubu is also part of the terrorism. And this person said, this is not just headline. This is confession that confirms that the long suspected collusion between political elites and violent criminals, security agencies must treat Bello Matawalle statement as primary evidence. The investigation must follow this lead immediately. No sacred cows. And this person said, if a notorious bandit leader can openly admit meeting top political figures, then the problem of insecurity in Nigeria is no longer hidden. It is institutional. This is no longer about unknown gunmen. Nigerians deserve the immediate arrest, investigation, and public prosecution of everyone mentioned, no matter their status. You cannot fight banditry with one hand while shaking hands with bandits using the other. Accountability must start from the top. So this person said, I have always known that this government has hand in over insecurity in this country. Later, they will tell us that they are working to maneuver insecurity. Our country now is a well recognized in every media outlet, not for good but corruption. Honestly, it is now obvious that a Nigeria government is involved in this terrorism and banditry in Nigeria. Look at what happened yesterday as they arrested the bandits in Kwara State. And they said that the AK-47, like they are holding, is the Kwara government officials that gave it to them. So my people, what else do you want to know about this insecurity in Nigeria? And people are now telling Tinubu to sack the Bello Matawalle. One of the security experts came out and told us that Tinubu had deal with terrorists. So These people that are involved in this terrorism and banditry, didn't you think they have deal with Tinubu? Can Tinubu sack them? That is the question. Let me allow you guys to watch the rest of the video and hear what this pastor said, as well as what Mr. Rrørism said. That who sold this country? Like, who sold this country? Can this country be redeemed? My people, take a listen, share, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and also give it a like. Thank you so much for doing so.
Many of you thought I was foolish. Few days ago, I did a video on the atrocities of Matawalle, the former governor of Zamfara State, and the present Minister of State for Defense under the administration of Bola Tinubu. Many of you thought I was foolish. Many of you called me names, say I was this and that and all those nonsense. But it's not your fault. It's because you have been under bondage for a long time. And you have come to a stage where you come to love your bondage. You come to love your chains. And so I'm not bothered. But you see, the ignorance you are living in will destroy you quickly. It is foolishness for anyone at this time not to have an understanding of what is happening in Nigeria. You will perish and you perish quickly. You see, I am not the kind of man of God that just look at evil prevailing. Because of the fear of death, the fear of being arrested, the fear of being persecuted, I close my eyes and behave as if I don't see. No. Like I've always said, either we say the truth, we will die. Or if we don't say the truth, we will die. It is better we die in the truth, knowing that we die for the just cause. Because death will definitely come to us all. And for whatever platform God has given you, you must use it efficiently for the sake of the kingdom of God and for the betterment of the people of Nigeria. Now, later, just 2 days ago, I found that that video, the video I posted with that my post, the video of Malam Murtala Bello, that was the Islamic cleric that was exposing the atrocities of Matawalle, all his involvement with the banditry, the sponsoring of banditry and all those. I found out that video was taken away from my phone. I've looked for it everywhere. I cannot find that video. Because even if I delete it, it will stay 30 days on my phone before it is finally deleted. There's a place where I can always restore every deleted item. And I checked everywhere. I've searched everywhere for only that video. Not only that video. It means he has paid some IT gurus who were able to do their magic to pull out that video from online. But you see, it has already done. I've already done what I want to do with it. I've exposed him. And also the video is on my previous video. If you have not seen that previous video, go and watch it. Now, also, there's a new video that I'm going to play for you now. It's in Hausa, but because it's in Hausa, many of you will not understand. And it is a revelation by a man that served as the SSA, as an SSA under Matawalle's government. He was an SSA to Matawalle, and every transaction, all their dealings with the bandits, the man has it there. And for many of you that don't understand why the video is playing here, I'll tell you everything because I understand Hausa, and I'm going to tell you everything that the man is saying. And he's ready to testify in court. Should Matawalle want to take either Murtala, should Matawalle decide to take Malam Murtala Bello or anybody to court, that he's ready to stand as a witness in the court. His name is Musa Mohammed Kamara, an SSA. He showed his appointment letter, stating that this is his appointment letter, that he was appointed as an SSA to Matawalle during his 8 years period as governor of Zamfara State. He was an SSA to the government. He also showed his appointment letter. He said he saw a video of the allegations of Malam Murtala Bello on Matawalle Bello, the former governor of Zamfara State, who is now the present Minister of State for Defense, and that he is here to state categorically that everything stated in that video is the truth and nothing but the truth. He said that it was on the order, that everything they did, that they were the one doing it. They were the errand boys that were acting on the order of Matawalle to deal with the bandits. They were the one buying cars for them. He said that they bought cars, not just car, they bought cars. He stated clearly that they bought cars for Kachala Alilu. They bought cars for Bello Turji. They also bought cars for Ado Alero. They were the one doing the work because they were acting on the capacity as SSA on the order of the governor. They were the one buying it and giving. So this is not this is not information from somebody that is reporting from somebody. They say no. He's stating categorically that they were the one doing the job for Matawalle. So it is foolish of anybody to come out and deny it. He also said that he was the one that gave the contract to distribute Dusa. Many of you might not know what Dusa is. Dusa is a shaft from corn. The shaft from corn, they also use it to feed an animal. They also use it to make mix with their tool that they eat, and also they also use it to make animal feed. But that they bought Dusa, he was the one that collected the contract of Dusa, and he brought this bank statement. This is the bank statement. He's showing the bank statement. You might not go through that video. You see, he's showing the bank statement for the Dusa that was bought, and he said he was the one that distributed to every bandit in the 14 local government of Zamfara State, each costing at the rate of 33 million, all together 42 million naira. 42 million naira to distribute Dusa to every bandit in Dusa, which means witchcraft, to every bandit in the 14 local government of Zamfara State. 28 bags altogether is shared to them. He also talked about that when they caught Adualero, the man they caught with 500 rifles, that it was Matawalle that sent, they shot the guy at the leg, and when they took him to Abuja, that it was Matawalle that ordered Dr. Bashir Maro, one of his boys, he ordered Dr. Bashir Maro to go and release him on his order. This is a man that is serving as a Minister of State for Defense under Tinubu. He said he also talked about that they bought house for Bello Matawalle, that the house, in fact, that he was the one that facilitated that transaction. That he was the one that facilitated the transaction, they facilitated the transaction to buy a house. That the house was an uncompleted building they bought. They bought the house as an uncompleted building and then completed it for Bello Matawalle, the kingpin, the terrorists, the kingpins of banditry in Zamfara State that has spread almost every part of the country now. Now, he said coming out to deny all these things is an insult to his intelligence. It's a dump. It means they're playing on the intelligence. But for Matawalle to come out and deny this is an insult to their intelligence because they were the ones that were acting on his order to carry out all those things. He also talked about that, in fact, that Malam Murtala Bello did not even mention some things. That some things that Malam Murtala, there are a lot of things he even missed out. He said, for example, that they were the ones that facilitated the buying of stolen cows. Because it's obviously this Bello Matawalle, this Adualero, the Kachala Alilu, Kachala Turji, all of them, they were also involved in cow rustling. The Rosu cows, that the stolen cows that they were bought to share to people in Zamfara State during the Salah period, that he was the one that was giving. He was given the sum of 88 million naira. And he went and bought the stolen cows from all these bandits. The cow that they stole, he was the one that he bought from Kachala Alilu, he bought from Bello Matawalle, he bought from every one of them at the rate of 140,000 naira for one. But they were given, the calculation they were given was at the rate of 150,000. So that the 10,000 on top of it was for transportation. That he was the one that went around, bought from all these terrorists, stolen cows that were stolen, they bought from all these terrorists to share. At the rate of 140,000, but they were given 150,000, so the 10,000 on top of it were for transportation of each cow. He was the one that facilitated it. How do you say such a man is innocent? I'm calling on the US, President Donald Trump. Designate this man a terrorist. Designate Bello Matawalle, the present Minister of State for Defense in Nigeria under President Tinubu's government, a terrorist. Designate him a terrorist. Because he cannot commit all these atrocities and today behave as if he's innocent. But if you think this is not it, I'm also sharing the video of the present Zamfara State governor. The present Zamfara State governor spoke about these things, about all these allegations. I'm playing this video now. Please listen by yourself with your own ears. Don't be ignorant. I've always said, don't be an ignorant fellow in your nation. Don't be an ignorant Nigerian. You have been subjugated for so long. It is an abnormality for you to remain in your ignorance at this time. I'm doing this at the jeopardy of my life, and I don't care. As far as the people come to understand what is happening, the knowledge, and they are liberated from these shackles, this confusion, this evil in Nigeria. Listen to the governor of Zamfara State now.
There were a lot of issues in the past with my predecessor. In fact, let me say this very categorical. If I were him, I would resign and face all the allegations against me. And that would have been more honorable because from all the information we're getting, my predecessor was fully involved in some of these banditry issues. Typical is the fact that there was a permanent secretary when his children were abducted. And it was unfortunate that he had to pay ransom through the government house. And it was also very clear, based on all the allegations, that bandits were being kept at government house. There are so many issues. So
now, I'm sure you have listened to it. You have listened to what the present governor of Zamfara State has stated there. Is it not logical for President Tinubu to step the man down, to relinquish him of his appointment, to make him stop that and go through the interrogation process? They are still there playing around because he needs him for re-election. Such man, Bello Matawalle, I say it again, is a terrorist financier, a terrorist sympathizer, a banditry facilitator, the man that supports banditry, and he should be designated as a terrorist. I call on President Donald Trump, Rep. Rrørism, and the government of the United States. Take note of this man. Bello Matawalle, the present Minister of State for Defense in Nigeria, is a terrorist facilitator, a terrorist sympathizer, and a sponsor. Such a man, sponsoring banditry that's claimed lives of many, destroying lives and property, is serving under this government today, at this time. We cannot continue to watch while evil prevail because we are afraid of dying. We are afraid of being killed or being jailed. Either alive or in prison, we will speak the truth to power. We will speak the truth to power and we will not be cajoled. Not by the government, not by anybody. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I'm calling on President Donald Trump, on the United States government, take note of this individual. Let him be arrested. Let him step down. Let him be interrogated. Designate him as a terrorist. Such a person does not deserve to hold any appointment in this nation. Then for the fellow Nigerians, if you like, think I'm being foolish again. Think, come about the data boys come and attack me again. There is no problem. We will continue to speak the truth to power, regardless of whose source is God.
I spoke about a friend's kidnapping by Fulani terrorists in Ijebu-Ode in the Yoruba language section. I was speaking with you guys 2 weeks ago, to be precise, when the call came through from his kidnappers. He'd been with them about 4 days prior to that time. They made him call my number repeatedly. I couldn't take it because I'd been told not to take it. So all these were on my mind. He's now released after the payment of 50 million in ransom, kidnapped in Ijebu-Ode, ransom paid in Kwara State. So you find that I had all these on my mind. And then the Supreme Court dropped another one in the case of, what was this case? Sagecom and Fidelity Bank. Now, I was looking at all of these, and then the FIRS came out with its sale of Nigeria to France. And I just looked at all of these and I saw the way the guy, the whistleblower, who blew the whistle on the police organ trafficking. I saw the way the guy was being dehumanized up and down the place. The way Yele is constantly a guest of one police or one court. I see the rise of the evil state. And I began to ask this question. Who sold Nigeria? Because you must understand that a state, regardless of what kind of state it might be, whether that's a totalitarian state, whether that's a feudal state, whether that's a democratic state, whatever state, whatever philosophy it might run by, functions on the back of its sovereignty. That sovereignty is rarely ever subsumed beneath the will of men. It is almost always demonstrated by institutions which are necessarily higher than men and do not function to the whims and caprices of men. This is how nations identified the sovereign powers and will of a people collectively aggregated is what makes a nation. The United Arab Emirates was originally a theocratic state, in a feudal state, inheritable from father to son. But they came to Nigeria, took our federal constitution. They took our federal constitution, tweaked it, and that was how the United Arab Emirates was battered, because there was the need to create a modern state that has its sovereignty. Here is the thing. When you look at all of this, and then during the course of that week, I saw the multiple accusations being leveled against Matawalle and the seeming impotence of Tinubu to deal with that. So it got to a point where I had to start asking myself, who sold Nigeria? Who sold Nigeria to Tinubu? Who sold Nigeria to the Fulanis? Who sold Nigeria to the Islamist terrorists? Who sold Nigeria to the Chagoris and to France? is it possible that we may redeem this sale? Because how else do you explain that a functional state is being run in the manner in which Nigeria is being run? How do you explain that we are where we are? So I sat back and I thought about it. What is it about us that has rendered us uniquely evil? What is it about Nigeria? Because there is really very little that is unique about us as a colonial enterprise, because everywhere else, Britain had colonies. India was a colony of Britain. Today is a world power. China was substantially subjugated by the West. Today, they are a world power. Malaysia, almost every nation outside of the Western Hemisphere at one point or the other was a colony. Ghana was a colony. The same history that Nigeria shares with other African countries. So why is it that we do not appear to have risen above a sold country, a purchased territory? I sat down and I thought about it. Is it unique that a country was purchased in the manner of Nigeria? Yes, Nigeria was purchased, by the way. Yeah, it was purchased in 1867. It was purchased by the British Crown from the Royal Niger Company, which had a charter over the territory largely in the southern part of Nigeria. So the British Crown revoked the charter and purchased it back. And as at that time, I believe it was £867,000 that was paid to the Royal Niger Company to purchase Nigeria by the British Crown. So Nigeria was a purchased territory. Now, the legality of its sale is another argument for historians and for political theorists. But I have need to mention it so that we begin to understand where our problem began. We were treated as a territory that contained certain things, including human beings that were treated as chattels, including gold, this, that. That was how we were sold. A territory was sold. Commercial proposition. But this is not new to us. America bought Alaska from the Russians in 1867. No, sorry. Around the late 1800s, they purchased it from them. That was in 1867. $7.2 million was paid. Seward was the Secretary of State who purchased it. He purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. It was known as the Seward Folly. That was a joke. That we went and purchased a nice garden until they found gold in Alaska, I think in 1897 or thereabout. So it is not unique that a territory is sold. What is unique is that persons were sold without their consent. But that is, as I have said, a story for political historians to deal with. But there is a consequence for the way Nigeria was founded. The British purchased a territory, a business proposition. And in purchasing a business proposition, like any good business owner, they have to figure out how to run their business. You are already, of course, familiar with the British doctrine of indirect rule. But indirect rule, as with every other thing in life, has its consequences. Indirect rule meant that the British decided to work with existing structures, and where the structures did not exist, create structures that mimics the structure by which they prefer to administer the vast territory that they had now given to themselves. Imagine this: a southern and northern protectorate, colony of Lagos, merged together, right? You probably had, at the most, I doubt that there were ever up to 100 British administrators available to run the entire enterprise. Even the soldiers had to be sourced locally. They only had white officers. Have you ever pictured the Hausa? Have you ever pictured the Fulani header? Young boy sometime, probably sometime barely in his teenage years. And you find that this kid is the one that is controlling a vast herd. It is pretty much the same thing when it came to the way the British ran the empire. It was the same concept. Nominal direction by the British district officer working with the existing or constructed local governance capacity. So the British came in what is today known as northern Nigeria. I am not going to be doing too much to repeat what I have spoken about or that I have made clear and made available. Go and download The Imperative of the Nigerian Revolution. I've touched on this extensively and the book is free. Download it from my website, delefarotimi.com. It's available free. Download it. But I'll touch on it briefly. In building his governance structure, the extreme dependency was placed on indirect rule because it was the only way this could work, given the limited human resource that could be deployed to Nigeria and almost everywhere across the world, because the British had a huge colonial enterprise. So what happened was that in northern Nigeria, there were already two governance structures covering most part of it. That's the Kanem Borno Empire and the Sokoto Caliphate. What happened essentially was that these two had the colonial superstructure layered over them. I don't know what else I can do. I'm having repeated complaints about my audio. You would have to manage it like that today because I don't know what else I may be able to do to help matters. So let's keep going. So you had a situation where they layered their governance structure over the existing Islamist empires that you have in northern Nigeria. Now, this Islamist empire, and I mean Islamist empire because they were essentially based on Islamic rule, the Kanem Borno Empire and the Sokoto Caliphate. Now, there were multiple ethnicities who had not been conquered either deliberately or because they couldn't. These people were brought largely on, they were brought under Fulani and Boronu influence. And in some cases, their chiefdoms were recognized, but of course, they were given lesser status. So you have things like the Nupes, they were there, but at the end of the day, what you have was a situation where, because the Fulani controlled a larger expanse of land, they had by far better organized, centralized, highly systemized governance structure, and so did the Kanem Borno Empire. This became the model for Nigerian governance. In southern Nigeria, you find that in Yoruba land, our Obas didn't have those kind of absolute powers. And they were also not necessarily, they didn't have religious powers of the sort that you find with emirs and the Shehu of Borno or the Sultan of Sokoto. They didn't have those kind of theocratic powers. But at the end of the day, what you found was that the Britain administered Nigeria to the exclusion of citizens. They dealt with agents. That's why they could never talk about British authority in Nigeria. So they had to deal with nominal agents of Britain whom they treated as speaking for me and you, or at least our ancestors. I'll give you a case in point, a major fraud. The Alaafin and the Oyos were taken essentially as the voice of the Yoruba. So any agreement with the Alaafin was taken as being valid over the whole of Yoruba land, regardless of whether they were independent states who had either rebelled against the authority of the Alaafin or who were never really directly under his authority. You found that they preferred to deal with totems, obas, emirs, and in the southeast, they created Igwes and what have you. They created all kinds of warrant chiefs. In the south, of course, they created all kinds of trading houses and created persons that they could speak with on behalf of persons they never consulted. That is how the modern Nigerian state was coupled together. There was never discussions with citizens. They dealt with totems. That was the beginning of the sale of Nigeria, because when you do not have the voice of those who are meant to be citizens aggregated to form the basis of the sovereignty of a state, but you can continue to deal with representatives, unappointed, unanointed, unelected representatives instead of the people, and what these unanointed representatives of the people say is almost always a reflection or echo of what the colonial interest desired. It's the same thing today. Who elected Tinubu? What happened to the Nigerian non-aligned status that we are all of a sudden the cowboy of West Africa? We are the ones who are busy retaking Benin. Who gave him that kind of power? Where did he derive the authority from? Who sold Nigeria to Tinubu? These are the kind of questions that one necessarily have to begin to ask. So the consequence of indirect rule is the creation of warrant chiefs who have continued to rule Nigeria because they are completely bereft of legitimacy and their power do not flow from the will of the people. But yet, the colonial powers have no problem with dealing with these persons on our behalf because these persons represent their interests. So now, if Nigeria was sold to Britain, who did Britain sell Nigeria to? Britain simply handed Nigeria to the Fulani, the favorite child. That is history that do not bear any argument against the structuring of Nigeria from bringing Robertson to come and midwife Nigeria's independence, removing Macpherson. These were all deliberate ploys designed to hand Nigeria over to the Fulanis. This was already predicated by the rich census. There were multiple things that were done to ensure that power was handed to the Fulani, and that's fine. I have already spoken about hegemonies. All around the world, countries have developed on the back of hegemonies. It has always taken the overbearing influence of an hegemony to develop a country. I spoke last week about the development of America by the WASP hegemony, the development of Britain essentially by the English. I've spoken before to the development of India by the Brahmins. It is normal that everywhere all around the world an hegemony would come at the end of the day to develop a place. That is why the character of most countries, you will find that the character is shaped by the hegemony that ended up influencing the birth of his modern state. This is normal everywhere in the world. So that the Fulani hegemony was favored by the British for his own selfish interest, that's completely fine. It's a matter of history. It does not bear argument any longer. But the question is this: what have the Fulani done with this power? When I say the Fulani, let me be clear that I speak to his aristocracy, or what should have been his aristocratic class. The aristocratic class to which power was handed, led by people like Ahmadu Bello, they had enough understanding of nation building. And that was why, in spite of the urgings of Gumi's father, who was the Grand Cadi of northern Nigeria, in spite of his urgings and machination, Ahmadu Bello knew better than to insist on the application of Sharia outside of personal civil matters. And that was what led to the introduction of the penal code in northern Nigeria, when the rest of southern Nigeria was using the criminal code. The penal code was crafted to take care of Muslim sensibilities and to ensure that the Christians in northern Nigeria, who are by no means a minority, let's be clear about that the Christians in northern Nigeria would not feel threatened by the rise of the Islamists. Ahmadu Bello understood the need for this. Whether you even say it's about takia or real politics, in spite of his own instinct, the fact is that based on this clear understanding of the need to build a modern state, Ahmadu Bello ensured that in place of Islamic penal law, what you had was the penal code, which was lifted essentially largely after studying the Pakistani system, which required the same. So what you had was a compromise designed to preserve the illusion of one north, because it was behind that illusion that the northern prerogative was exercised by the Fulani aristocracy, ably headed at the time of independence by Ahmadu Bello. Now, when you begin to understand that this power that was given those, understood by those who got the original license, they also understood that it was critical that that power be carried with respect and with an understanding from the sensibilities of those in whose name the power had been appropriated. I would explain myself. In 1962, you had what was known as the TV riots. The TV riot was not unique to the TVs, but TVs were probably the largest of the ethnic groups that had not been dominated by the Fulanis, because they fought, the Idomas as well. So you had a situation where the Middle Belt was in a state of famine. And this was because persons were overreaching themselves and the illusion of one north was being broken. Consequences of these led to the Western regional crisis, because there was a need to make up for what was being lost in the Middle Belt. The illusion of one north was being shattered, and there was a need to couple together the coalition that could retain the Fulani veto. That led to the rupture of Nigeria. I'm saying all of this so that you begin to understand where we are in relation to Nigeria. Now, who sold Nigeria? Nigeria has been sold to the Fulani, I told you. It is the misadministration of the Fulani veto that has led us to where we are today. I'll break it down. Every time power is unyoked to law, it is always bound to end up badly. The power that was granted, remember I told you, it wasn't granted to citizens. It was granted to totems and hegemony. The administration of that power, how it was administered, was always going to be critical to the way it would impact on the lives of the citizens. When the first coup happened, it happened because the victims of the hegemony rebelled against the use of its powers. When the second coup happened, it was because the beneficiaries of the veto needed to retake the veto. And in retaking the veto, there was a recognition for balance. And this was why, in spite of the fact that Murtala Muhammad was the protective head of that coup in July 1966, he ceded power to the highest ranking northern officer, who was not a Fulani, but a northern minority, Yakubu Gowon. I'm not going to say God rest his soul. I learned his time ended as well, as all of our time would end someday. Yakubu Gowon was the inheritor of that veto. And I will explain. If it was about military hierarchy, there were multiple persons ahead of him in the military. So even if you say that after Gui Irosi's death, the most senior person should take over, it was by no means Yakubu Gowon. The ascension of Yakubu Gowon, ignoring people like Ademulegun and Admiral Way, and I believe about 2 or 3 other persons who are clearly ahead of him. I believe even Ojukwu was a senior. Was a clear declaration of the northern veto. Northern, because to legitimize it, you needed, you couldn't be called the Fulani veto because they required the illusion of one north to exercise that veto. So that veto was exercised in 1966 in July, and that was what brought Yakubu Gowon to power. This excursion in history is very, very important, because diagnostics is just as important as treatment. If you fail to understand where you are coming from, it becomes difficult to navigate your way back to sanity. Yakubu Gowon took power and thus began the unilateral redesign of Nigeria and his sale. And when I speak to his redesign and sale, I'll remind you, as at the dawn of the first coup, Nigeria had 4 regions. By the time the military was handing Nigeria back in 1979, I believe by then, I think, was it not 19 states? And by the time the civilians ran it for 4 years, from 1979 to 1983, and beginning from 1984 up until when the military left again in 1999, it moved from those 19 to your current 36. A country was unilaterally designed under the imperative of an hegemony without consultation with those it calls citizens. Who sold Nigeria? Who? It is almost impossible to talk about the sale of a country, but you can speak to the sale hypothetically, or let me say, in a metaphoric fashion. So, the military restructured Nigeria, restructured it without consultation. Who sold it to them? You and me. By our silence. People did it for different reasons. The religious class sold Nigeria. The silence of supposed good men in the face of evil normalizes evil. If you are called by God's name, either as a pastor or as an imam, even a babalawo, or the head of an lady, and you see this evil and you have kept quiet, you sold Nigeria. Those of you who were busy talking about before David, there will be Saul, you sold Nigeria. Those of you who have been asking people to fast and pray for a better Nigeria, when you can see that it is human agents that are destroying Nigeria and not some demonic forces. The demonic forces are flesh and blood. You sold Nigeria. If you've been asking people to pray, to fast, instead of rebuking evil, you sold Nigeria. If you have, as the Munafikun, stood behind your pulpit in the mosque and excused evil like Gumi, you sold Nigeria. If you have excused evil like Pantami, you sold Nigeria. So when we speak about persons who sold Nigeria, if you once railed about good governance and your voice has become stilled in this season, you sold Nigeria. If you are a student in the university, because let me tell you, in 1960s, the early 1960s, up until 1962, Nigerian students, particularly of what became the University of Ibadan, University College back in those days, they were the ones who ensured that the British-Nigerian Defense Pact could not be executed, could not find realization. They understood the threat it constituted to Nigeria's sovereignty. They understood the importance of a country's sovereignty. You, Nigerian students of today, what are you doing? In your universities, you are busy. You are very busy. My sound is not muted. You are beg, leave that story. Other people are hearing me. Check your own sound. You are busy in your universities. Nigeria bet Nigeria, bet this, bet that. You are popping one pill after the other. You're busy whoring and doing one thing after. The only thing you never think about is Nigeria. And then you are talking. You sold Nigeria. You think you are too young to care about the future of this country. When we were in the universities, we did it. You can abuse us all you care that we failed you, but what have you done? You are selling Nigeria with your detachment from it all. You're selling Nigeria. You're selling Nigeria. See, Obasanjo came in 1999, beneficiary of these multiple sacrifices of different persons who led to that moment where you won what we'll call a democracy. It came in 1999. Nigeria was sold to him by those who didn't want to lose control of their enterprise because Abacha could not control what he had grabbed. Obasanjo came to power. And I dare say he sold Nigeria too, and I will explain. In the lead up to his re-election in 2003, when Yerima and other northern governors became concerned about their own re-election, and they were looking for ways of ensuring that they did not lose power in the 2003 election. They could see the behemoth that Obasanjo was, and now he was going to seize control across the country. So what did they do? They weaponized Islam. It was in the lead up to the 2003 election that you began to see the declaration of Sharia in northern Nigeria, beginning from Zamfara, with Jangebe in Zamfara. What was Obasanjo's response? The same Obasanjo who could unleash maximum force against the OPC in southern Nigeria, who could unleash against Bakassi Boy and every other person who was daring to challenge the authority of the Nigerian state. The same Obasanjo was busy deterring and talking about, oh, he will fizzle out his political Sharia. That thing that he dismissed as political Sharia because of his own political interest, that thing is what has formed the basis for the madness that you see all around northern Nigeria. I'm not suggesting that Obasanjo wanted anything like that, but the refusal to deal with the madness that was emerging in 2002 into 2003, dismissing it as political Sharia, that was what laid the foundation for the rise of Islamist madness in northern Nigeria. If Obasanjo had dealt as decisively with the rise of what he called political Sharia in 2003, would we have seen the rise of Boko Haram under Modu Shehu? Would we have seen the normalization of this madness all across the length of northern Nigeria? But Obasanjo treated it as political Sharia. He ignored it. He didn't mollycoddle it. He ignored it. It was politically expedient that he ignored it. And he ignored it. And that was what led to the normalization of the madness that overtook northern Nigeria. That was the beginning of it. And then Yar'Adua came. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay long. And then there was GEJ. GEJ sold Nigeria by his cowardice. When GEJ was busy telling you that he had Boko Haram members in his cabinet, what did he expect me and you to do when he, the president, is the one informing us instead of dealing with it? What were we supposed to do? What information did he offer? What direction did he offer? What leadership did he provide? What leadership did he provide? None. Asasi was killed. Yakowa was killed. What did he provide? Nothing. On the eve of his departure from power, in spite of the classified reports that he had access to, what did he say? His ambition was not worth the blood of any Nigerian. In response to a man who had imported terrorists into Nigeria ahead of the election, instead of responding by informing the people, educating them, and responding to the threat, was busy talking about at the end of the day, his ambition is not. But a country is worth the blood of his men. And I doubt that Nigerians would have surrendered to the evil they surrendered to in 2015 if he had managed to provide the leadership to resist it. But he sold Nigeria with his cowardice and with his lack of vision. He left, sold Nigeria to Buhari, the same man under whose imprimatur terrorists had been imported into Nigeria before the election. Cycle complete. You had Islamist terrorists already in place. No thanks to the tolerance of what was referred to as political Islam in 2002-2003. And into that mix, Islam brought Fulani terrorists. Baraje told us, that's not delivery to me. Commander Laomi told us how nothing was done when it was brought to his attention in 2016. We've had multiple stories coming from the terrorists themselves telling us to go and ask Buhari during his lifetime what kind of deal he had with them. Thanks to El Rufai, the short devil of Kaduna, we know today that bandits, quote and unquote, terrorists were paid, and that the Kaduna state government, for instance, is still paying. We know, for instance, that some people were paid, and once they were paid and they were rampaging, we were told how they were paid subventions. We were told when their subventions were stopped and they began to pillage. The ones who are in our jungles, who are organizing this kidnap for ransom, they are completely different in most cases from the Islamist terrorists. So Nigeria has been sold by those who are meant to protect its territorial integrity. It's been sold, compromised, his interests completely compromised. And then you look at the extent of compromise of national security. And then you ask the question, who sold Nigeria? How did a person like Pantani end up being in charge of our national data? How? Somebody who is a self-confessed terrorist became our Minister for Technology in charge of our national database. How? How? Who sold Nigeria? And me and you, we kept quiet. And then, when Buhari was done, he sold Nigeria as well. He sold it to Tinubu. This is very simple. Look all around you. Every law was compromised to make Tinubu the president of Nigeria. His pedigree didn't matter. The president. His educational background did not matter. He had to be the president. The sovereignty of this country was sold to make Tinubu the president of Nigeria. Laws be damned. Morality be damned. And it's not just the judiciary who sold Nigeria to Tinubu. Where are the elders of this country? Where are they? Where are they? The political class, or should I say crass, where are they? Where are they? Who is speaking? A president is awarding a contract with a no-bid contract at an unheard of price, at an outrageous sum, outrageous in the extreme, 2 point something. I can't even wrap my brains around the figures any longer. But nobody's talking. Nobody's talking. Nigeria has become Tinubu's property to do with as it pleases. What has Obasanjo said about it? Please, what have you heard from Abdulsalam Abubakar? Which one of your pastors have talked about the coastal road? How much have they collected out of it? Why are they all quiet? Nigeria is the way it is. Something that outrageous has happened and everybody who once spoke have kept quiet. Quiet. It's not even about us imagining things. It is about us being told. We're told routinely. In a country that has over 20 million children out of school, in a country where people cannot go to their farm, in a country that cannot even secure its own border, where somebody was Achi, I think that, yeah, Venerable Achi was kidnapped with his wife and daughter. Ransom was paid, but they killed this man in front of his wife and daughter, who must have been serially raped by now by these monsters. That country had hundreds of children in terrorist custody. The same terrorists who were phoned to release children, the same terrorists Bayo Ononuga told us they have their numbers, they can talk to them, who couldn't be spoken to. How absurd do you get? Hundreds of children in their custody, but this country has enough firepower to go and stop a coup. No problem. On whose authority? We have decades of non-alignment in our foreign policy, but overnight, Tinubu, a president lacking in legitimacy or popular mandate, he had been thwarted in his attempt at attacking Niger, thanks to David Udeyin and whoever leaks that memo. This man, within hours of a coup, could mobilize our Air Force and our special forces into Benin Republic. Before the dust of that one is even clear, under very opaque circumstances, our Air Force jet is grounded in Bobo Dioulasso or wherever in Burkina Faso, with our airmen detained, and they are still busy lying. Who sold Nigeria to Tinubu? That none of you can even talk. Nobody is asking questions, and before the dust is even settled, they are talking about our fathers fought against the sale of Nigerian sovereignty to Britain, who was our colonial master, the original owner of Nigeria, who actually paid the price, purchased it. Our fathers fought and ensured that these people could not, under any stretch of the imagination, bring that defense pact to fruition. But this generation is sitting down. A president forced on the country is selling our sovereignty brazenly. Our tax records, supposedly anonymized, would be shared with another country. Does this make any sense? Who sold this country? Who sold it? Who sold this country? How much was it sold for? Can we redeem it? Is it possible to redeem it? I don't understand exactly where we are, to the point where we do not seem to understand that these unilateral and opaque decisions that explains nothing to anybody, not even a pretense at carrying along the rubber stamp legislative hand. Does it make any sense that we, who are the victims, sit on the fringe whilst decisions are taken, impacting our interest and the interest of our children, the future of everybody, and we just keep quiet? Let me tell you when you become complicit. When citizens refuse to be informed, even if you are victims, to be freed, you must be informed. When information is weaponized against you, when poverty is weaponized against you, but you voluntarily refuse to be informed, you sold Nigeria. When you refuse to participate in the political process, flawed as it is, you failed Nigeria. You sold it. When you fail to demand accountability and transparency, When you find reasons to be silent in the face of evil, it's this time now, Mawani is our own, you failed Nigeria, you sold it. When you refuse to challenge impunity, you sold Nigeria. When you fail to confront, you sold Nigeria. When you laugh and applaud evil because it's happening to somebody you happen not to like, you sold Nigeria. So the persons who sold Nigeria are many and they are varied. And let us be clear about something. It's incidental that what I wanted to talk about from the question one gentleman just asked. How are you complicit when the system is rigged and you have merely accepted the fact that you can't fight that system? I'll tell you. A system can only be rigged against you with your consent. The system was rigged in Kenya. Kenyans fought against it. And the Kenyans have multiple nationalities logged in their own states as well. But they found common purpose. They found common interests. And they killed behind those common purposes and interests. And those are what you call national interests. And that was what they killed behind. You are too busy embracing the divisions. And that is why you can't find common purpose. And when you find common purpose, you are lacking in common courage. So here is what I'm going to say. The ICE platform is ready. We'll let it go live by tomorrow. The Instagram channel, the Telegram channels are already available. Join them. Create your own spaces. And your spaces that you create, let it be owned by you. Use your spaces to organize yourselves. We will provide material, we will provide leadership as much as we can. All of us can come together to fight against the sale of this country. Let us own it. It is what you don't own that people trample on everywhere. Those who have sold Nigeria are not just the rulers of Nigeria. It is me and you. I would like to close this by speaking to the collectivity or the collective nature of our failures and also the collective nature of our failures if we win. A year ago, I was imprisoned. This time last year, I was enjoying the pleasures of a kitty. I look back at it fondly because it was simple, you see. I didn't have to worry about anything except living from day to day, hour to hour. But in that season, something became obvious to me. Nigerians can act as one when they care. I could remember the NSAS protest as I laid in my prison mattress on the floor. As I laid on my mattress many a day, I would remember things that had passed. And I remembered how united Nigerians were during NSAS protests. And this was a protest around a single issue, NSAS, the end of police brutality. Nigerians coalesced around that singular issue. It was that simple. They coalesced around it and they scared the system so much that it was forced to remove its mask in broad daylight. It was your capacity to act in a concerted manner that scared Nigeria into the murder that it committed in broad daylight on the 20th of October, 2020. It was the strength, they were really scared. They went mad. Ordinarily, that was never going to happen. They would never have killed in broad daylight, especially in a place like Lagos. Not be Zaria now, not be Kaduna. It's not a place where they killed the Shia 430 in broad daylight. They wouldn't have done something like that in Lagos. But you drove them to extremes by the fact of your unity. So here is what I'm thinking. The same unity became apparent when I was in prison. You all spoke largely with one voice. That was what made me weep when I came out of prison. I was shocked that you could speak with one voice. So that told me something. We have the capacity to act as one. We have the capacity to act as one. Let's start by first of all agreeing on the things that we agree on. What are these things behind which we are prepared to kill? These are the things we'll be doing on the ICE platform. Finding national consensus. When we have consensus, we can now make demands. But I'm not interested in sitting here railing and complaining and ending up with analysis paralysis. The difference between a mob and an army is education. My purpose is to educate and to be educated as well. The ICE platform that we're putting together is meant to educate you and to organize you. It is meant to organize you into a viable force that has the capacity to engage with the system based on issues. We don't need to be friends. I don't want anything for me that I don't want for you. Whether that is you as a human being, you as a member of a demographic, you as a member of an ethnic nationality, I don't want anything for me that I don't want for you. If we can all come to the point where we can all have common purpose and common interest, we are more than them and we can defeat them. And when I say that we don't need to bear guns to do this, this is why I say so. Imagine that instead of 1 or 2 locations, such as happened during NSAS, you had 774 locations across Nigeria in every local government where the will of the people is being expressed. Even if it's only 10% of that, instead of 774, have only 74 locations across the length of Nigeria where the people are expressing their will peacefully. Do you think we can be ignored? And do you think a people who are that united behind purpose can be rigged out? Randy Peter is doing a fantastic job out there. I endorse what he is doing. I refuse to succumb to despair. You see them going around buying governors. That's because they know they don't have you. It is you that I want. And I want you to want me. We need to want ourselves, all of us. No agenda beyond common purpose. No agenda. If you want something that your neighbor does not want, then you're evil. Unless what you want is the good and your neighbor is the one desirous of evil. Let's find what our common purposes are. We bleed the same. Our children need the same environment in which to grow. And let me break something down for you, as pessimistic as some of you might be. The very same principles that you require to govern your Biafra, your Oodua Republic, the same principles, if you enforce them in Nigeria, would make Nigeria the same El Dorado that you are desiring your home enclave to be. I am not so utopian that I do not recognize that there are also persons who want the exact opposite of what you desire. But that's fine. What it has always taken to propel society is a critical mass. A critical mass. You can't sit down in your corner belly aching about everything that is wrong with Nigeria whilst you do nothing. It's either you're going to do it this way or you're going to have to go and buy guns. You can hate the word Nigeria all you want, but until you have the capacity and the powers to change. Look at what Bulaba did. Whether he stole power, however he got there and testing, the same way you test mic. He tested his mic, he changed the national anthem straight away. By the same token that Bulaba, who stole his way to power, could unilaterally change the national anthem because he has his lackeys in power. Imagine that you elected your persons into power because you united behind common purpose. What is it that you cannot do? Just the same way Bulaba could snap his finger and do everything he's doing for his people. If you are the ones who determine who becomes, you also snap your fingers to change it overnight. All I'm going to say is this. While you're busy pointing at the ruiners of Nigeria, remember to look in the mirror as well, because this one is not about pointing fingers at one. We are all guilty. Everybody, every Nigerian is guilty for the sale of Nigeria. If you've kept quiet in the face of evil, you've endorsed it. And you are just as guilty as the persons who have perpetrated the evil. If you have been active in speaking, but you suddenly lost your voice, you are part of those who sold Nigeria. So when you're looking for those who sold Nigeria, look in the mirror. You might just find one of them staring right back at you. There are no saints or sinners, but some people sold Nigeria, and some people are going to have to redeem it if there's going to be a tomorrow. Compliment of the season. If there's anything complimentary about this season, we'll find hope where we can. I'll see you later.
Welcome to Chamras News TV.